The current date is November 4th, 2025. I clutched the freshly issued divorce decree in my hand, feeling the rough texture of the paper against my fingertips. After years of bottled-up frustration, a wave of relief washed over me, settling deep in my chest. The wind outside the county clerk's office in downtown Denver was chilly, but I didn't feel the cold at all. Instead, my eyes felt sharper, clearer, like a fog had lifted. My ex-husband, Daniel Cooper, stood beside me, his face twisted in a scowl that looked like he'd just bitten into a lemon. He gripped his copy of the decree so tightly his knuckles turned white. He'd been the one to initiate the divorce, claiming I was too focused on my business and neglected our home life. But we both knew the real reason. I hadn't bent over backward for his mother or let his brother slack off at my company indefinitely. I didn't bother acknowledging his sour expression. Instead, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Matthew's number. Matthew was my HR manager at the small marketing firm I'd built from the ground up. Reliable, no nonsense, always getting things done efficiently. The call connected on the second ring. "Matthew, I need you to handle something right now," I said, my voice steady and direct, no room for hesitation. "Terminate Joseph Cooper's employment effective immediately. Settle his final paycheck up to today and have him clear out his desk. Don't let it disrupt the team." Joseph was Daniel's younger brother, my former brother-in-law. When we'd first married, Daniel's mother, Margaret Cooper, had practically begged me to give Joseph a job. He'd just graduated college with no experience, and she painted it as family helping family. Freshly wed and eager to keep the peace, I'd created an administrative position for him, light duties, and I even bumped his salary $1,000 higher than standard for the role. But Joseph had abused it from day one. Constant late arrivals, early departures, spending hours gaming or scrolling social media at his desk. The department leads had talked to him multiple times, but he'd snap back, "My sister-in-law's the boss, I can do what I want." I'd tolerated it for nearly 2 years, but now, with the divorce final, that chapter was closed. As soon as the words left my mouth, Daniel exploded. He lunged for my phone, yelling, "Jessica, are you out of your mind? What gives you the right to fire Joseph?" I sidestepped him easily, keeping the phone out of reach. "Matthew, this is final. If anyone questions it, tell them it's from me. I'll handle any fallout." I ended the call and pocketed the phone, turning to face Daniel with a cool stare. "What gives me the right? I'm the owner of the company. Joseph takes my money and does nothing. And now that we're divorced, I have zero ties to your family. I fire who I want." Daniel's face flushed red, his hand shaking as he pointed at me. He was in his mid-30s, with that same boyish face I'd once found charming, short brown hair, a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, and broad shoulders from his days playing recreational soccer. But now, it just looked pathetic. "Jessica, don't be ridiculous. Joseph is my brother. You agreed to hire him back then. You can't just what?" I cut him off, my voice rising just enough to match his. "Touch your conscience, Daniel. For 2 years, I've bent over backward for your family. Your mom wanted a bigger fridge? I bought one the next day and had it delivered. Your dad complained about his back? I sourced a massage chair from overseas. Joseph needed help with a car down payment? I handed over $6,000 without blinking. And what did I get? Your mom bad-mouthing me behind my back, saying I neglected the house because I was always at work. Joseph causing headaches at the office, and you telling me to let it go because he's family. I suggested we start trying for kids early on, but you said wait until Joseph was settled. Then, when he was, you claimed I was too old now, that it was risky. I'm 35, Daniel, not ancient." The words poured out, things I'd held in for so long. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came. He just stood there, deflated, finally muttering, "Even after the divorce, you can't do this to Joseph. What will he do without a job?" "That's not my problem," I replied coldly. "He's in his mid-20s, Daniel. He has hands and feet. Let him find real work instead of leeching off me." If you really care about him, stop enabling him. Teach him to stand on his own. With that, I turned and walked to my car, the sun warming my skin as I went. It felt liberating. Divorce and firing Joseph, step 1 complete. No more being dragged down by the Coopers. Back at my apartment, the one I'd bought outright before marriage, thank God no property fights, I drew a hot bath, tossing my clothes into the washer like I was cleansing away the entire mess. That night, I muted my phone notifications, not on purpose, just exhaustion, and curled up on the couch with an old movie. Sleep came easy, uninterrupted for the first time in ages. I woke the next morning to birds chirping outside my window, stretching lazily on the couch where I dozed off. The apartment felt peaceful, sunlight filtering through the blinds. No rush to make breakfast for anyone but myself. I reached for my phone to check the time, but the screen lit up with a barrage of missed call notifications that nearly blinded me. Squinting, I counted them. 99 unanswered calls from Margaret Cooper, Daniel's mother. They started around 4 p.m. yesterday, every 10 minutes or so, stretching into the early hours of the morning. Mixed in were over 20 text messages, all from her. I opened the messages, curiosity overriding my annoyance. The early ones were saccharine, almost performative. "Jessica, honey, is there some misunderstanding with Daniel? Couples argue, but don't let it get to you." Then, "Why did you fire Joseph? That seems rash. Let's talk. I can get him to straighten up." As I scrolled, the tone shifted to accusation. "How can you ignore us like this? Joseph's heartbroken after losing his job. As his sister-in-law, you should care. Don't take it out on him." By the later ones, desperation crept in, laced with threats. "If you don't call back, I'll come to your office. This isn't over if you don't reinstate him. The Coopers aren't pushovers." The final messages, sent around 1 a.m., turned pleading. "Jessica, please. Joseph needs that salary for his car payments. Have pity on an old woman. Give him his job back." I nearly laughed out loud. Margaret's messages were a masterclass in emotional whiplash, polite 1 minute, threatening the next, then begging. She was in her late 60s, with graying hair pulled into a tight bun, sharp features, and a wardrobe of floral blouses that hid her manipulative streak. But where was this pity when she'd been undermining me? As I pondered, my phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel. "Jessica, call Mom back now. Don't make me come find you." I tossed the phone aside, ignoring it all. Divorced and free, I owed them nothing. They could call and text all they wanted. I wouldn't respond. Instead, I headed to the kitchen, boiling water for oatmeal and adding fresh berries. The sun streamed in, warming the room, and for the first time in years, breakfast felt unhurried. No Margaret nagging me to cook for the family, no Daniel lounging while I served. Back when we lived together in their old suburban house, mornings were chaos, Margaret dictating recipes, Joseph demanding extras like bacon, Daniel glued to his phone. Now it was just me, and it was glorious. After eating, I started tidying the apartment, purging anything tied to the Coopers. Daniel's forgotten sweatshirts went into a donation box, along with knickknacks from family gatherings. The living room felt lighter already. But as I worked, the phone vibrated again, Margaret calling. I watched it ring, then rejected it when Daniel followed suit. Enough. I blocked both numbers in my contacts and archived their chat threads on messaging apps. Silence at last. No more middle-of-the-night calls from Margaret about her ailments or Joseph's latest drama. Fresh air from the balcony carried the scent of neighborhood flowers, a far cry from the stale air in their house. I decided to redecorate, starting with that ugly landscape print Margaret had insisted on hanging for good luck. It came down easily, rolled up for recycling. The gray throw pillows Daniel chose for practicality got new covers in soft blue. By noon, hunger hit, and I whipped up a simple salad with greens from the fridge, no one critiquing my cooking. As I ate, memories surfaced. Burns from hot oil while Margaret complained I was clumsy. I shook them off, napping peacefully afterward. The rhythmic pounding on my door yanked me out of my afternoon nap, my heart racing as I shook off the grogginess. I padded quietly to the door, rubbing my eyes, and peered through the peephole. My stomach twisted. There stood Margaret Cooper, my ex-mother-in-law, with her arms crossed tightly over her floral blouse, her gray hair disheveled as if she'd rushed over in a hurry. Her sharp blue eyes, usually narrowed in judgment, were wide with fury now. Beside her was Daniel, looking equally agitated, his short brown hair tousled, dark circles under his eyes, making him appear more exhausted than angry. He shifted his weight from foot to foot, his broad shoulders hunched in that familiar way he did when things weren't going his way. How on earth had they tracked down my apartment? I'd been careful not to share the address during our marriage, precisely to avoid scenes like this. The knocking grew louder, more insistent, vibrating through the wood. Margaret's voice pierced the air, shrill and demanding, "Jessica Roberts, I know you're in there. Open this door right now. You can't just hide after what you've done." I took a deep breath, steadying my nerves. Running from this wouldn't help. They'd only escalate. Better to face them head-on and set boundaries once and for all. I unlocked the door and pulled it open just a few inches, enough to see them clearly but not wide enough for them to barge in. Crossing my arms over my chest, I kept my voice calm but firm. "How did you find my address? And keep your voice down. You're disturbing the entire building." Margaret's face flushed a deep red, her wrinkles deepening with rage. She lunged forward, trying to shove the door wider with her shoulder, her hands reaching out as if to grab me. "You fired my Joseph and then blocked our numbers? What kind of heartless woman are you? We need to talk. Now. Let us in." I held the door steady, my muscles tensing against her push. Daniel stepped closer, his expression a mix of frustration and pleading, his voice lower but edged with urgency. "Come on, Jessica. Mom's really upset. We just want to sort this out. Joseph's devastated. He didn't see this coming." I shook my head, keeping the barrier firm. "There's nothing to sort. This is my home, and you're not coming in. Joseph was fired because he wasn't doing his job, simple as that. He showed up late, left early, spent his days playing games instead of working. My managers tried to talk to him multiple times, but he just argued back, acting like he owned the place because of our family connection. It's my company, and I won't tolerate that anymore, especially now that we're divorced and I have no obligations to your family." Margaret's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed into slits as she raised her voice even higher, her words echoing down the hallway. "You promised him that position when we asked. It was a family favor. And now, just because things ended with Daniel, you're taking it out on poor Joseph? We welcomed you into our home, treated you like one of us. How can you be so cruel?" Her volume was deliberate, I realized, drawing attention. Sure enough, I heard doors creaking open along the hall, neighbors peeking out with curious whispers. One older couple from across the way stared openly, murmuring to each other. Daniel glanced around nervously, his face reddening. But he added, "Mom's right. Joseph knows he messed up sometimes, but firing him on the spot? That's harsh. He needs that job. Bills don't pay themselves." I felt a surge of anger bubbling up, but I kept my tone measured, refusing to match their drama. "Harsh? Let's talk about what's really harsh. For 2 years, I've poured money and effort into your family without a word of thanks. Your fridge broke, Margaret? I replaced it the very next day, no questions asked. Dad's back issues? I imported that expensive massage chair from Europe. And Joseph? His car down payment came straight from my pocket because you begged me, saying he deserved a fresh start. All while you gossiped behind my back, telling Daniel I was a bad wife for prioritizing my business. And Joseph? He not only slacked off, but risked my company's reputation. This isn't revenge. It's me finally protecting what's mine." Margaret switched tactics in an instant, her eyes welling up with tears as she clutched her chest dramatically. turning to address the growing audience of neighbors. "Everyone, look at this. I took her in when she married my son. She had nothing back then. We supported her dreams, helped her through tough times. Now her business is successful. And what does she do? Dumps Daniel like yesterday's trash and fires my youngest boy, leaving him jobless and broke. She's trying to destroy us. Have some pity. We're just a simple family." The whispers intensified. A few neighbors exchanged sympathetic glances toward her, and one even nodded along. I could feel the judgment shifting, but I wasn't about to let her twist the narrative. Raising my voice just enough to be heard clearly over her theatrics, I countered, "Don't listen to her lies. My business was already up and running before I ever met Daniel. Profitable and growing. This apartment? Bought with my own savings. Pre-marriage. Your family didn't support me. If anything, I've been the one bankrolling you all. Over $10,000 in gifts and favors, and not once did you say thank you. Instead, you pressured me constantly, made me feel guilty for working hard. Joseph didn't mess up sometimes. He abused his position every day. And now you're here, causing a scene at my door? If you don't leave right now, I'll call the police and let them handle this trespassing." Daniel reached out, trying to calm his mother by placing a hand on her shoulder, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Jessica, please, let's not do this in front of everyone. Joseph will change, I promise. Just give him another shot." But Margaret shrugged him off, wiping fake tears and glaring at me. "You think you're better than us now? We'll see about that." I met her gaze steadily, my resolve unbreakable. "I'm done. No more chances. Go home, or I'll make that call." With that, I pushed the door shut firmly, the click of the lock echoing my finality. Leaning against it, I heard Margaret's muffled protests fade as they argued among themselves before finally retreating down the hall. My pulse thrummed in my ears, a mix of adrenaline and exhaustion washing over me. It had been messy, public, and draining, but standing my ground felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. No more letting them manipulate me with guilt or tears. From here on, my life was mine alone. No intrusions, no drama. As the hallway quieted, I straightened up, feeling a spark of empowerment ignite. They'd pushed too far, and now they'd learn the consequences. With the door firmly shut behind me, I leaned against it for what felt like an eternity, my back pressed to the cool wood as I listened to the muffled sounds from the hallway. Margaret's shouting grew fainter, mixed with Daniel's frustrated sighs until finally silence descended. My heart was still pounding from the confrontation, a mix of adrenaline and raw anger surging through me. I'd stood my ground, but the emotional toll was heavy. I felt drained, yet strangely empowered. For years, I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace, but no more. This was my space, my life, and they had no right to invade it. Once I was sure they were gone, I pushed myself away from the door and made my way to the living room cabinet, my legs feeling a bit unsteady. Tucked away in the back, behind some old photo albums, was a small metal box I'd hidden there months ago. It wasn't fancy, just a plain lockbox I'd bought at a hardware store, but inside it held my secret arsenal of evidence, collected over the past 2 years like pieces of a puzzle I hoped I'd never need to assemble. I'd started gathering it all after a particularly hurtful incident one evening at their house. I'd been in the kitchen, washing dishes after dinner, when I overheard Margaret whispering to Daniel in the living room. Her voice was low but clear. "Daniel, you need to talk to Jessica about transferring some company shares to your name. She's your wife. It's basically yours anyway. What if she leaves? You'll have nothing." Daniel had mumbled something non-committal, but it stung like a betrayal. My hands had shaken so badly that night as I quietly pulled out my phone and hit record, capturing every damning word from around the corner. From then on, I'd made it a habit to document everything, just in case. I sat down on the couch now, the box in my lap, and flipped it open with a soft click. The contents spilled out gently, stacks of printed bank statements, screenshots of text messages, And that small voice recorder, its red light long since faded. I sifted through them methodically, each item stirring up a whirlwind of memories and resentment. There were the transfer receipts, $5,000 wired for the new stainless steel refrigerator Margaret had needed because her old one wasn't big enough for family gatherings. I'd ordered it online the very next day after her complaint, even paying for expedited delivery to avoid more nagging. Then the $7,000 for the high-end massage chair for Daniel's dad. I'd researched models for hours, importing one from a reputable brand overseas because nothing local was good enough for his back pain. He'd whined about needing reliable transportation for job interviews, but once he got the job at my company, the car mostly sat in their driveway while he slacked off. All told, these favors added up to over $10,000, not counting the smaller things like groceries or utility bills I'd covered during family visits. I'd never asked for a dime back, telling myself it was what families did. But looking at it now, it felt like exploitation, pure and simple. As I organized the papers, Margaret's voice pierced the quiet again from outside the door, persistent, wailing cries that echoed down the hall. "Jessica, please! Joseph's car loan is overdue. He can't pay it without a job. You're going to ruin his life, his future." Her words were laced with desperation, but they only hardened my resolve. I ignored them, focusing instead on the chat logs, messages from Margaret demanding more help, always phrased as if I owed them. One read, "Jessica, the air conditioner is acting up again. Can you send someone to fix it? Family takes care of each other." Another from Daniel. "Mom says Joseph's short on rent this month. Spot him $500? It was endless, a pattern of entitlement that had worn me down over time. Just as I was about to close the box, the knocking resumed, louder this time. Peering through the peephole, I saw they'd returned, now with Joseph in tow. He was a lanky 25-year-old, about 6 feet tall, with disheveled brown hair that fell over his forehead, hiding his sullen blue eyes. He wore a rumpled hoodie and jeans, slouching behind Margaret with his hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking every bit the entitled kid I'd come to resent. Steeling myself, I swung the door open wide, clutching the stack of papers like a shield. "You want an explanation? Fine. Here's what I've spent on your family over the years." I thrust the receipts at them, watching their faces as they scanned the amounts. Margaret's eyes darted away, stammering, "Well, that was family helping family. You offered." Daniel's cheeks flushed a deep red, his broad shoulders tensing as he avoided my gaze. Joseph, however, snapped back defensively, his voice cracking with frustration. "Come on, Jessica. You make good money running that company. What's the big deal if we needed a little help? It's not like it hurt you." I felt a surge of gid anger. The big deal? This money came from my hard work, nights I spent building the business while you all took it for granted. Without another word, I pulled out my phone and hit play on the recording. Margaret's voice filled the hallway. "Daniel, push for those shares. She's your wife. It's his too." Neighbors' doors cracked open again, curious faces peering out as the audio played. Their expressions shifted from defiance to shock. Margaret's face drained of color. Daniel looked mortified, and Joseph shifted uncomfortably, his messy hair falling further over his eyes. "And that's not all," I continued, my voice steady now. "Joseph, you sold client data to a competitor. I have photos from Matthew, you meeting them at a coffee shop downtown. I could press charges right now. Turn this over to the authorities." Joseph's face went pale, his lanky frame seeming to shrink as he muttered, I didn't mean, it was just once." But the fight was gone from them all. They stood deflated, like balloons popped by the truth. "No more harassment," I warned, my tone final and unyielding. "Come near me or my work again, and I'll call the police. We're done." I slammed the door shut, the sound echoing in my ears. Alone at last, I slid down to the floor, tears streaming down my face, not from sadness or regret, but from pure, overwhelming relief. Those years of being used, of biting my tongue, were over. The evidence had set me free, and for the first time, I could breathe. Wiping my eyes, I whispered to myself, "This is the end of their hold on me." The apartment felt bigger, brighter, like a weight had lifted. Freedom wasn't just a word anymore, it was real, and it was mine. The days following the doorstep confrontation were blissfully quiet, allowing me to dive back into my work at the marketing firm without distractions. I caught up on delayed projects, held team meetings, and even brainstormed new client strategies with renewed energy. It felt good to focus on something productive, something that was entirely mine. But that peace shattered one afternoon when my receptionist's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ms. Roberts, there's a Margaret Cooper here to see you, along with a young man she says is her son, Joseph. They insist it's urgent." I pinched the bridge of my nose, sighing deeply. Of course, they wouldn't let it go. "Tell them I'm in a meeting," I replied, but I knew it wouldn't hold them off for long. Sure enough, minutes later, the receptionist called back, her tone apologetic and strained. "I'm sorry, Ms. Roberts, but she's causing a scene in the lobby, crying and talking loudly about family matters. Some employees are starting to stare. Should I call security?" I glanced at the clock. My schedule was packed, but ignoring this would only make it worse. "No, I'll handle it. Give me a moment." I smoothed my blouse, a crisp white one I'd chosen that morning for a client pitch, and headed down the hall to the lobby, my heels clicking purposefully on the tiled floor. As I entered, the scene unfolded just as described. Margaret sat on one of the waiting area couches, dabbing at her eyes with a crumpled tissue, her gray hair slightly disheveled from what looked like a hurried trip across town. She wore her usual floral blouse, now rumpled, and her sharp features were twisted in exaggerated sorrow. Joseph stood awkwardly beside her, shifting his weight from foot to foot. He was in his mid-20s, tall and lanky, with messy dark hair that fell over his forehead, and his green eyes were shadowed by deep circles, as if he hadn't slept in days. His clothes, a wrinkled button-down shirt and jeans, looked like they'd been thrown on in haste, a far cry from the cocky demeanor he'd had while working here. The lobby wasn't empty. A few employees lingered near the coffee station, pretending to refill their mugs while stealing glances. Whispers floated through the air. "Isn't that the boss's ex-mother-in-law? And what's going on?" I approached with a calm I didn't fully feel, crossing my arms to create a barrier. "Margaret, Joseph, what is this about? I made it clear we're done. Coming to my workplace like this is inappropriate and disruptive." Margaret spotted me and sprang to her feet, her tears seeming to intensify on cue. She reached out, grabbing my arm with surprising force, her nails digging in slightly through my sleeve. "Oh, Jessica, thank goodness. We've been so worried. Joseph here, he's tried everything, but he can't find a job. No experience, you see. And with the economy the way it is, please, you have to help him. For old time's sake, as family." Her voice cracked dramatically, loud enough to draw more attention from passing staff. I gently but firmly pulled my arm free, stepping back to maintain distance. "We're not family anymore, Margaret. And this isn't the place for personal drama. My employees are trying to work." I turned to Joseph, who avoided my gaze, staring at the floor like a scolded child. "Joseph, what do you have to say?" He finally looked up, his voice barely above a mumble, laced with reluctance. Sorry, Jessica. I mean, for slacking off at work and, the thing with the client data. I shouldn't have done that. Can you give me another chance? Let me come back. I promise I'll do better this time. No more games or anything. I'll work hard. Really." His words tumbled out awkwardly, lacking the sincerity I'd hoped for, more like a rehearsed plea than genuine remorse. I shook my head, feeling no pull of sympathy. It was too late for apologies. I'd given him chances before, only to be met with entitlement. "Joseph, you had 2 years to prove yourself. You showed up late, left early, ignored feedback from managers, and even put the company at risk by sharing confidential info. That's not something I can overlook. My firm doesn't keep people who don't contribute. It's not fair to the team who actually pulls their weight. Margaret's sobs grew louder, drawing even more onlookers. Suddenly she dropped to her knees right there in the lobby, clutching at my skirt hem. "Jessica, please. He's so young, barely starting out. If he can't pay his car loan, the bank will sue him, ruin his credit, his future. Have a heart. Don't destroy my boy like this. I'm begging you, as a mother." The theatrics were over the top, her face streaked with real or fake tears. I couldn't tell. Employees froze, some whispering in shock, others pulling out phones discreetly. The air thickened with awkward tension. This was exactly what she wanted. To embarrass me in front of my staff, force my hand through public pressure. I felt a flush of anger rise, but I kept my voice steady, bending slightly to help her up. "Margaret, get up. This isn't helping anyone. Kneeling here like this, it's undignified and making a spectacle." She refused, shaking her head stubbornly. "Not until you promise to help. You're a good person, Jessica. Do it for charity, for kindness." Just then, Matthew, my HR manager, appeared at my side, his expression concerned but professional. He was in his 40s, with neatly trimmed salt and pepper hair and a calm demeanor that had diffused many office crises. Leaning in, he whispered, "Boss, this is escalating. Too many eyes. It's bad for morale. Maybe take them to a conference room? I can clear one out." I nodded gratefully, then addressed Margaret again. "Fine. We'll talk in private, but I'm not promising anything. This is your last chance to discuss civilly. If you keep this up, I'll have to ask you to leave or involve security." Margaret hesitated, glancing at the growing crowd, then allowed Joseph to help her stand. "Thank you, dear. You'll see reason," she sniffled, wiping her face. Joseph muttered a quiet, "Thanks," still not meeting my eyes. As we walked towards the conference room, I could feel the weight of my employees' stares. The office buzz already starting. Whispers followed us down the hall. What was that about? And the boss's ex-family? Drama. I straightened my shoulders, reminding myself this wasn't my fault. Their desperation didn't obligate me. I'd been generous enough. But as we entered the room, I wondered how far they'd push, and how I'd hold my ground without losing control. We filed into the conference room, the door clicking shut behind us, sealing out the curious stares from my employees in the hallway. Daniel hovered beside her before sitting, his broad shoulders slouched in defeat. Joseph, looking even more disheveled, slumped into the seat next to them, avoiding my gaze entirely. I leaned back, crossing my arms, my voice steady but firm. "Look, Joseph's situation is unfortunate, but it's not my responsibility anymore. He's an adult. He made his choices, slacking off, betraying the company by selling client data. That's why he's here now, jobless and in debt." Margaret's face crumpled further, her sharp blue eyes pleading as she leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. "Jessica, please. I know we've been awful to you, calculating behind your back, demanding too much. But Joseph, he's my baby. He can't find work anywhere. Those interviews? They all fall through because he has no real experience. And that car loan, $3,000 a month, he's already gotten warning calls from the bank. If they repossess it and sue, it'll ruin his credit, his future. Can't you help just this once? Not even at your company. Maybe refer him somewhere else? You know people in marketing. One call from you could change everything." Joseph finally looked up, his green eyes rimmed with fatigue, his voice low and hesitant. "Jessica, ex-sister-in-law, I'm sorry. Really, I was stupid. Gaming at work, arguing with managers, that data thing. I shouldn't have done any of it. I promise, if you give me a shot somewhere, I'll work hard. No more slacking. I'll learn, show up on time, everything." Daniel nodded eagerly, trying to mediate, his perpetual 5 o'clock shadow making him look even more worn out. "She's right, Jess. We messed up as a family. But think about it. He's young, mid-20s. One mistake shouldn't destroy him. A referral wouldn't cost you anything. I paused, letting the silence stretch, my mind racing through years of their manipulations. But I saw an opportunity to end this cleanly, on my terms. Fine, I said slowly, watching their faces light up with hope. I'll help with a referral. I have a contact at a mid-sized agency downtown, entry-level admin role, nothing fancy, but it'll cover basics like that loan. But only if you agree to my conditions. No negotiations. Margaret straightened, wiping her tears. Anything, Jessica. Name it. First, I held up a finger. Joseph signs a no-contact agreement. No calls, texts, visits, nothing. If he breaks it, the job referral gets pulled, and I'll reconsider pressing charges on the data theft. That means jail time potential. Joseph swallowed hard, nodding quickly. I agree. No contact. Second, I raised another finger. No more demands, ever. If your family has issues, health, money, whatever, don't come to me. Violate that, and not only does Joseph lose the job, but the full remaining debt becomes due immediately. The room fell quiet as they exchanged glances. Margaret nodded first, pulling Daniel and Joseph into agreement. We accept, all of it. I pulled pre-printed documents from my bag, a simple no-contact form and IOU I'd had my lawyer draft weeks ago, just in case. Sign here, all of you. They scribbled their names hastily, hands trembling slightly. Joseph pushed the papers back, mumbling, Thanks, I guess. Details on the job tomorrow. Matthew will call you, Joseph. Now go. As they filed out, Margaret paused at the door, offering a weak, God bless you, but I ignored it, shutting the door firmly. Alone, a wave of relief crashed over me. No more emotional blackmail, no more burdens. This was closure, my life, my rules. As Margaret, Daniel, and Joseph filed out of the conference room, their footsteps echoing down the hallway, Margaret turned back one last time with a forced smile. Thank you, Jessica. You're a good person, despite everything, she said, her voice trembling slightly, as if she still couldn't believe she'd had to sign those papers. Daniel nodded awkwardly beside her, mumbling, Yeah, thanks for helping Joseph out. We'll stick to the terms. Joseph, still avoiding my eyes, added a quiet, I appreciate it, really. I won't mess this up. They shuffled away, looking defeated. Margaret's shoulders slumped under her floral blouse, Daniel's broad frame seeming smaller, and Joseph's lanky posture even more hunched. I closed the door behind them and leaned against it for a moment, letting out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The weight that had pressed on my chest for years felt lighter, like I'd finally shed an old, ill-fitting coat. Back in my office, Matthew knocked gently before entering, his face breaking into a relieved grin. He was in his early 40s, with neatly trimmed salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses that gave him a trustworthy, professional air. Jessica, that was impressive, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I overheard bits from the lobby earlier. Sorry, couldn't help it with all the commotion. You handled them like a pro, firm but fair. I've seen how they've been dragging you down. It's about time you set those boundaries. Thanks, Matthew, I replied, smiling genuinely for the first time that day. It wasn't easy, but signing those agreements, it feels like closure. No more surprise visits or demands. I just want to focus on the business now. He nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. And about Joseph, do you really plan to help him find something? After everything? I leaned back in my chair, considering. Yes, but nothing cushy. It's entry-level at best, through that contact at the logistics firm downtown. No special treatment. He'll have to prove himself. It's more for my peace of mind, tying up loose ends so they can't come back claiming I reneged. The next morning, I made the call to my old colleague Sarah at the firm. Hey, Sarah, it's Jessica. I've got a referral for an admin spot. My ex-brother-in-law. He's green but motivated now. No favors, just a fair shot. She laughed lightly. Got it. Send his resume. We'll interview him like anyone else. Hanging up, I emailed Joseph the details through Matthew, keeping it professional and brief. As the day unfolded, with meetings and project updates filling my schedule, a sense of unburdened freedom settled in. No more dreading calls from Margaret about her latest emergency or Daniel's guilt trips. I was ready for new beginnings, expanding the company, maybe even traveling solo. Walking to the window, I gazed at the Denver skyline, the sun glinting off the buildings. This was my life now, on my terms. That evening, back in my apartment, I cooked a simple stir-fry. Veggies from the farmer's market, seasoned just how I liked, without anyone critiquing the spice level. As I ate on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker on, a sense of contentment washed over me. The purge of old belongings had left the space feeling fresh, like a blank canvas for new memories. I thought about joining a hiking group or finally taking that painting class I'd always postponed. Life stretched ahead, full of possibilities untainted by the Cooper's toxicity. Divorce had stripped away the illusions, but in their place, I'd found strength and clarity. No more looking over my shoulder, wondering when the next demand would come. From now on, it was just me, my ambitions, and the freedom to chase them without apology. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, a perfect metaphor for my bright, unencumbered future. This wasn't just survival, it was thriving. And damn, it felt good.